All right, so let's get to this game because it is a big one. UConn and Florida going toe-to-toe. UConn 4.5-point favorites this game at Madison Square Garden, which obviously is a lot closer for UConn than Florida. But still, it is a neutral court. The line of this game, I think I just mentioned it, 4.5. Jenks, when I look at this game, it feels to me almost like a buy low spot on Florida because you look at the Gators so far this season, they already have 3 losses. But a lot of them were really close. Like their first game of the season, they lost to now number 1 Arizona 93-87 on a neutral court. And then they're coming off a heartbreaker where they went toe-to-toe with Duke and lost that game by 1 point, 67-66. Now that loss against TCU, I don't know what happened there. They lost 84-80 to TCU, and that was a bad loss. But this is still a very talented Florida team. And I understand that, like, UConn's really solid this year as well. But when you're giving me 4.5 with the Gators, I think they're going to have a shot in this one, especially when it comes to rebounding, because Florida has been really good on the offensive glass. The 4th-ranked team, according to Kim Palm, when it comes to offensive rebounding percentage. So I think that's going to give them plenty of second-chance looks. I'm not saying UConn can't run away with this one. I just think you look at the losses for Florida, and maybe Florida is a little undervalued in this matchup.
I go back and forth on this game. I think the real key is going to be whether or not Terrace Reed Jr. returns for UConn because he's that big man in the middle, and he's had that foot injury. But if he returns, you're talking about a guy that before he left with that injury was averaging 20 points and 9 boards a game. So all of a sudden when you talk about that, that front court advantage that Florida may have because they're so long and they do have that advantage, then I think Reed can certainly mitigate that. I've gone back and forth here. I think more than anything, I like the under in this game. And I do think one thing that needs to be said is even though this is going to be at the Garden and it's technically a neutral site, this is going to be a UConn crowd, clearly, just because of the proximity. So I think that goes into the handicap as well. But UConn is one of the best defensive teams in the country. And when you talk about a championship matchup like this, I mean, this feels like a championship matchup, even though it's early in the season. I kind of like the under, I think.
Well, I think you can make a great case for it just simply because of what both of these defenses have done already this season. Both a top 11 unit, according to the metrics. So you're right. Both these defenses are really staunch. And this is going to play like a playoff game or like a March Madness game because for UConn, I think this is their last like big non-conference matchup. Actually, they play Texas, I think, after this. But still, they only have a couple games left where it's these quad 1 category games where they can really boost their resume because the problem is with the Big East this year, it doesn't feel like a year where the Big East is just going to be really tough. Like maybe it could be. It's just to boost their resume for March. These are the games that are going to get them, the number 1 seed if they roll through conference play and they already have, all these quad 1 wins. So it's a big game for UConn. And of course, Dan Hurley has no trouble getting up for some of these games, no matter who the opponent is. All right, so let's stay at Madison Square Garden, and let's go to Clemson and BYU. I believe that game is at the Jimmy V Classic as well. BYU has been a solid team so far this year. Their only loss of the season coming to UConn in a heartbreaker 86-84. We know BYU can really crash the glass, and Clemson's not a team that really has a true rim protector. But every year, Clemson feels to me like one of those teams that's really scrappy that people don't really think about. They're coming off a loss to Alabama, lost that game 90-84, but they hung tough for most of the game. So I think for me, this one, the issue is the line. I do think BYU is going to win this game, but I was kind of shocked to see 7.5, Jenks, because over at Kim Palm, which, is not the Bible, especially this early in the season, but Kim Palm has BYU winning this game 79-74. So there is a discrepancy there. So I think I would lean towards maybe Clemson getting the points, but overall I do think BYU wins the game.
Yeah, I'm bummed because yesterday this line was sitting at 5.5. So we've seen 2 points move, in the Cougars' direction. And I love BYU at -5.5. That was going to be my play today. So I woke up this morning, I'm like, great, 7.5. But BYU is clearly a better team. I mean, this is a high-scoring team. They average 88 points a game, and there's no question that Rob Wright is going to be the best player on the floor for the Cougars. I I don't know if the Tigers can keep up. This is definitely going to be one of those contrasting styles where the Cougars want to run, they want to control the ball, they're great at spreading the ball around, and then Clemson wants to force them into slowing it down and playing more of an ISO game. The thing about Clemson is they've got to hit from outside because they'll shoot a lot of long-range shots. They're just not necessarily great from three. So if they get cold at all, I think BYU can run away with this thing. But again, it's the 2-point movement that bothers me. Loved it at 5.5. Not crazy about it at -7.5.
Yeah, I think at that point you just kind of kiss it goodbye. You're like, all right, it
Yeah.
was fun while it lasted.
Exactly.
See you later. We'll go to another game. All right, so we have a couple minutes left. Any of these other games interest you? As far as top 25 action, we have Villanova at number 2, Michigan laying 15.5. Not normally a game that I would bet on. We have Maryland to Eastern Shore at number 24, Virginia. I don't even see a line for this game, so it must be outrageous. And then the other tight line in top 25 action, number 13, Illinois at Ohio State. Illinois laying a short 3.5, total of 157.5. And this is where I think I'm trying to think back to like strategy from years past, because again, we're just starting to dip our toes in the water of college basketball handicapping. But I think you need to be careful with some of these conference matchups on the road, because especially in college basketball, like, I know Ohio State isn't ranked and this line looks suspiciously low, but it's hard to win on the road in some of these big conferences.
Oh, absolutely. And particularly when you talk about some of these environments, which are just, some are more intimidating than others, but you also have to take that into account, where I think that some, in college football, for example, it's more even where the home crowd is the home crowd. But in college basketball, where fans are right on top of you, like playing at Cameron Indoor is a lot different than playing in other places. So that's something to always consider. I looked at Villanova, Michigan. I did look at Illinois, Ohio State. I think I like the home dog here. You're talking about the first true road game for Illinois this season. They played at some neutral sites, but haven't really been on the road this season. The Buckeyes play slightly better defense, and these are two very evenly matched teams. But in Columbus this season, Ohio State is 6-0 straight up, taking points with these guys, and I think they match up well with their guard play with Mobley Jr. and Bruce Thornton. So I'm going to take the points with the Buckeyes here.
Yeah, and that's my original point, is that you look at this line, you're like, Illinois looks like the better team. Or at least they have the better wins so far this season. But again, when you're talking about these big conference matchups, especially on the road, I think it's either a no play for me or you play the home dog. So I don't think I'm going to play that one, probably either.